Welcome to What the Decks, where over the course of a lunch hour, we take the idea for a deck build from Lunchbox to Deckbox. I'm your host, Skylar, and today we're going to work through a deck in reverse instead of building a deck from the ground up. We're going to break one down. That's right, this is a week B, and today is going to be a deck deconstruction, and I couldn't be more excited. We are going to talk about Hedkrakkas, Fortkrakkas, and it is my favorite pairing in the game. It's one that I haven't been able to shut up about, and I've been looking for an excuse to bring to What the Decks. So here we are. Hello to those who are joining live. Jake Wellner, see you in the chat. Thanks for joining me. Oliver, glad to see you. Blink at least once if your Fortkrakkas didn't come home. And now this has just become a staring contest. So Oliver is referring to the pink slip match from the Alberta Classic. So I recently went to Canada, made it back with a golden ticket too. So I get to go to Worlds later this year. So pretty pumped about that. I didn't bring Hedkrakkas, Fortkrakkas to the main event. I guess that statement depends on who you talk to regarding what the main event is. So to the Alberta Classic, the Grand Clash, I brought Mournflight with Masks, a deck I dubbed the Vengeful Veils, and one I was proud of and had a lot of fun running. I think that deck is a blast to pilot. But the Fortkrakkas were featured in what some might refer to as the main event, and that was the Pink Slip Round 2 versus the Underworld's Underground podcast, specifically Saxdom. So that's my excuse to bring Hedkrakkas, Fortkrakkas to the show, is that they were recently in this Pink Slip match. The results have not been posted. They will not be posted or spoiled during this episode today. We are working to edit the video. We weren't able to post it live at the event, or stream it live at the event due to just technical limitations. We were streaming out of a hotel, and the hotel Wi-Fi was not conducive to that setup. So we're working on getting the video edited and posted up to, and when I say we, I should clarify that I mean Alex. Alex of Shadegrass Reflections. That's where that's going to get posted. Once it is, I'll definitely add a link directly to this video. Might pin it to call attention to it. But you can guarantee that we'll be promoting when that video goes live as well. That'll be being cross-promoted by both Underworld's Underground as well as What the Hex. All right, so let's dive in. What is this pairing that I have been in love with since conception and have not let go of? So just like with Mournflight, so when we did a deck deconstruction of the Mournfrost on What the Decks, I talked about how there was a card pairing spark that started it all. Like the first time I read Time Freeze, I knew I wanted to try it with Mournflight. Well, the first time I read Bold Sortie and Earthworks, I knew I wanted to try it with Hedkrakkas. And that is because, so we'll dive straight into these surges here. For those unfamiliar, Bold Sortie, score this immediately after an activation step in which a friendly fighter's charge action began on a feature token in your territory. Feature token is key here because it's not restricting you to just objectives. And Earthworks, a friendly fighter is given a guard token if that fighter is on a feature token within 1 hex of no one's territory. So when we combine that with the plot card, after the place feature tokens step, a player using this plot card places 1 available feature token within 1 hex of no one's territory, but not in a starting hex, a blocked hex, a lethal hex, or a cover hex. When they do so, they can choose which side is face up. So in this case, we're going to be choosing cover. And if more than one player is using this plot card, you roll off. to determine who's going to be placing those first. But the main piece here is being able to place a feature token. And we're going to get into a warband crash course here. But it's important to highlight this first and foremost. So there's this primal, it's not primal surge, tireless trackers. I was going to say, I swear it's on Tuftaga. Tireless trackers. At the start of the first round, choose up to 2 other friendly hunters and push each chosen fighter 1 hex towards an enemy leader. So Wallop and Dako are your hunters. And so at the very beginning of the game, you can push each of them forward. That can be onto objectives or feature tokens. So what that all adds up to is I have 2 surges that I could score on the very first turn of the game. And from there, I had to pursue this. And after, beginning that pursuit, so I'm actually shaking. This is weird. Okay, so I shook during the pink slip game, but not the Grand Clash. And that's because my favorite warband is on the line, right? And I'm shaking now because I don't want to mess this episode up. I want to give them all of my love. Like this episode is my love letter for the Spent Glory series. If you haven't checked it out, there's gonna be a link in the description below. Spent Glory had a call to arms at Valentine's Day this last year, asking people to write about their favorite war bands, not because and like maybe their favorite combinations like this, whatever that favorite thing is that you interact with, that you want to share with the wider community, to write about that, not because it's the best thing in the game, the most broken thing in the game, but like because it's something that brings you joy, something that you have fun doing, and spread that joy with the community. It's an awesome project that Fish Mode has put forward into the community, and people are writing in. Like, you need to check this series out. He is accepting more and more love letters every day, and is posting them at a cadence, I believe, of about 2 a month. So it's a wonderful way to spread the joy of Underworlds, and that's what this is today. And Chop, a friend of mine, when he did an episode for his audience, because he has a podcast called 3 Men in a War Game. It's a good podcast. I recommend checking it out. He did an episode on Underworlds where he wanted to show his audience that the game had evolved and become something that he really enjoyed. He'd first dipped his toes in around Shadespire and Nightfall, but the game hadn't matured to a point with the skill expression it has today, with the intrigue and the extreme marriage of mechanics and theme that it has today. And those are all things that he's fallen in love with, and he loves where the rules are at. He loves where Nemesis is at. But where I'm going with this is, at the top of that episode, he talks about how he was nervous more than any other episode he'd done because he didn't want to mess it up, because he didn't want anything said to dissuade somebody from getting into the game, and he didn't want to mess it up why you should jump into the game, because it had recently re-grabbed him. And I feel that way today, coming into Fort Crackas. All right. I actually lost my spot because I was shaking, and I decided to dispel that nervous energy by just chatting about it some more. But we were talking about the pushes at the beginning of the game, at least somewhere around there, that allow us, Bold Sortie and Earthworks, right? Straight out of the gate. Well, as I worked more on this pairing, it became apparent to me how much you can do passively. You can score 11 plus, and I got to put the plus in there because there's some cards I decided to leave out of this initial count, like, for example, Charge Everybody. Like, that to me is aggro enough where I want to leave it out of this kind of like passive count, even though it doesn't matter if those attacks land. And the plus is also in here because of Conquered Domain. That can flex up. But 11 plus glory can be gained or scored without landing a single attack. So you have some extreme passive potential to the point where you can out passive and surprise opponents. When I went to LVO with them, I planned to out passive Ephelum. What was my hope at the time, and kind of just make the attacks that I need to, and try to force them to be the beatdown, force them into my territory. I also so I'm not sure where they stand against Ephelum today with Ephelum's current nerfs, but I always struggled tossing Hedkrakka into Ephelum because you essentially get like one or two really good shots at taking down the queen, and if you can't, or even if you can, but especially if you can't, like then you're charged in the midst of them, and you got to survive everything that they can bring in, and those changers are so damaging. And if you didn't take her down, so I used to struggle with an aggressive game plan into Ephelum, and that actually is one of the reasons why a card switched into this deck and became the right card in this deck just in general, and we'll get there. But ultimately, I love counterpunch in this game. I love flex in this game. Like anytime your opponent has to peel you off of an objective to prevent you from scoring, and you can roll those defense dice, hold that position, and then you have tools to get back on, in your power cards. You have ways to attack back, like that counterpunch feel of no, you come to me and let's go. I love, and that's their play style. So Hedkrakka in general has an extremely flexible build kit. You can take them aggro, you can take them flex, where they stand somewhere between the middle of a full aggro game plan and a hold game plan. You can pursue a full hold game plan. I don't necessarily think that that's the right answer. I think this is about as close as you get with this flexy counterpunch style, and man, is it my favorite way to play this game. And I play Skate's Wild Hunt, another favorite of mine, as you're aware, very flexy as well. So let's give you a warband crash course for those unfamiliar with how this warband is going to work. And we'll dive into some of their tips and tech tricks as well here. So every fighter has something it can offer you, and that is something I really enjoy about a tight 4-fighter warband, is when they can act as a toolkit for you and each offer their own strengths depending on the matchup that you're in. So we have a level 2 wizard right out the gate. With Hedkrakka, I hate spells, but if I have to deal with spells, please give me a level 2 wizard out the gate. I promise I'll only take spells that require 1 dice, and I'll be less sad when 2 dice don't make it work, because most of the time I'm probably enjoying that casting. But man, do I hate spells. Okay. Except for spell attacks. Spell attacks are fine. It's, still rolling dice and comparing defense results. That's fine, especially with the support equation that weighs in there. But all right, so before we dive into the fighters themselves, I'm going to take a step back and talk about primacy. So they do come with a plot card, and primacy came out during Dire Chasm as the season mechanic. They are essentially the avatar of the Dire Chasm season. We've seen seasonal avatars before. So for example, we have in Nether Maze, right? Is that where the elves came out? Yeah. We have the Shadeborn. And so they were kind of the avatars of the Olgu season. And we also have, I feel like I have more examples than that. Like when Gnarlwood came out, we got the Gnarl Spirit pack, and they felt extremely avatar-y, but I think that one's a bit of a stretch. Regardless, this is a firm example of a seasonal avatar, one where you hope that when that seasonal mechanic rotates out, that there's enough safety built into the seasonal mechanic for this warband in particular, that they'll be able to continue to enjoy time in the game. So like the Shadeborn, on the flip side, they have this ability where they can come in on edge hexes instead of having to rely on cover hexes. And that's the only thing kind of keeping them relevant, but they still have too much of their package relying on cover and some rough objectives. So they unfortunately have not lasted as well with the seasonal change as Hedkrakkas have here, where everybody used to have access to primacy and they just did it better. Now the only games that see primacy is the one that they're in, and they still do it the best. So when a player gains or is given the primacy token, they take the primacy token and place it with their fighter cards. If another player has the primacy token, when a player gains it, they take the token from that player. So it sits between you, and it's a tug of war. A player gains the primacy token after an activation, and after an activation is important. So there's a ton of FAQs out on how primacy works, from like timing of when you acquire it and things like that. And that's really important to keep in mind and study up on. It's actually something where anytime I go into an event, I try to study back up on primacy, but there's actually a lot written on it. So sometimes I do forget, like if I haven't refreshed myself. If somebody were to ask me a question on primacy timing right now, I would hope, 80-90% I would nail it. But I'm not afraid to dive back into the FAQs and make sure that I'm getting it right either. So one thing, if you're going to pursue playing this pairing, and man, do I recommend it, is just spend some time with the FAQ and the primacy section real quick and make sure you shore that up for yourself. But a player gains the primacy token after an activation in which a friendly fighter's attack action targeted a fighter with no wound counters and took that fighter out of action. So you 100 to 0 to fighter, in which a friendly fighter's attack action took an enemy leader out of action. So you don't have to 100 to 0 their leaders. You just got to kill them with an attack action in an activation. So reacting to like a failed attack or anything that's going to grant you a attack outside of the activation, those aren't going to count towards primacy. And if their warband holds 4 or more objectives, this will almost never happen for you. This is more of a way for them to pull it away from you, but it is really funny when you pull this off for yourself. If you play this a lot, the answer to how many times you've done this probably won't be 0, but it'll be really low. And it's only going to happen in early game while you still have all 4 of your fighters, or in like a really stalematey game where neither of you are killing each other. And if a player has the primacy token at the end of the round, they gain 1 spent glory and then discard the primacy token. So I had said 11 plus earlier, and I didn't factor in primacy. And you're generally going to see you have 1 card that can just grab you primacy for free. So not landing attacks, right? You're actually looking at 12 plus glory passively from this build alone. And it gets more, it gets higher the more you start interacting with your opponent, the more you start grabbing primacy, the more you put into Conquer Domain. Like, this deck has excellent scoring potential. We're looking at 18 here. If you get all 3 primacy rounds, then we're looking at 21. And then if Conquer Domain flexes up, we're looking at 22, 23, probably not 24. You're probably not getting 4 from it, but it is really fun when you do. So you've got a really good score ceiling scoring floor before you even factor in kills. And in talking about primacy, so these are the ways that your opponent can get it. They're also the ways that you can get it. But most of the time, because you do it best, it's going to be from Primal Surge here. After an activation in which this fighter's attack action takes an enemy fighter out of action, gain the primacy token. So again, after an activation in which. So these attacks have to happen in activations. They can't happen outside. Primal Surge won't even help you there. But Hedkrakka, Wallop, and Toothdaga all have Primal Surge. The only one that doesn't is Dacko. So Dacko has Primal Tracker. After the spider's move action, if the spider holds an objective in enemy territory and there are no enemy fighters within 2 hexes, gain the primacy token. So this is in the like tips and tech tricks category with Dacko. He can do what I call a transforming charge. He's got a range 3 attack, right? So if somebody is hanging out just at range 3 from an objective that he can get to in enemy territory, and there's no one closer, enemy fighter wise, he can charge to that objective, and after the move, he'll gain the primacy token immediately. Now, Hedkrakka, and this is important, this is how this warband inspires. Hedkrakka has Primal Portent. When you gain the primacy token, choose one friendly fighter. That fighter is inspired. This does not wait for the inspire window. This happens instantly anytime you gain the primacy token. So right after that move, grab the primacy token. You know what? Let's go ahead and inspire Dacko. This is something that was not possible in the Dire Chasm season when he came out, because there used to be a rule that you could not inspire during a super action. But now he's the only fighter in the game that can. So you can go from 2 swords to 3 fury on that charge while you've secured Primal Tracker for yourself. I've never done it, but I want to. And assuming I still have my warband, I'll definitely be trying to before this season is over. This being a Fearsome Fortress pairing, we've got less than 6 months left to play Hedkrakkas. So get out there and play Hedkrakkas. Get excited with me. By the way, I'll spare you any wahs during this episode. As badly as I want to do them, Brian has informed me that I need to spend several hours alone in a shower or a car attempting to better my wah. It is, in his description, pitiful. So we won't give that a strained go. So Dacko can do this transforming charge, which is just a cool like tips and tricks sort of a thing that you can keep in mind. Primal Tracker is something a lot of people forget about, both something you'll forget about, something your opponent will forget about, that he can go over and steal that. It's pretty forgettable given the fact that you have 3 movement speed, and you got to get to an objective with that, and then you also have to get to an objective that doesn't have fighters within 2 of it, right? And if you want to do the transforming charge, you need a target within 3, right? So everything about Primal Tracker is really rare, and it kind of goes against what we're going to be doing with Hedkrakkas. You're going to be spending most of your time protecting your territory, protecting your fort that you've cracked. It's yours. You're the Hedkrakkas, not them. Yeah, so anytime you're going to put yourself in a position like this, you're kind of going against the Hedkrakkas game plan, but it's there. It's available. And you can like use redeploy to get into a sneaky position to then run off and grab it for you. Redeploy is a card we're going to talk about a lot. It's so good. It's one of my favorite cards in the game. All right, we're in the middle of a warband like crash course here. So let's pick this ball back up. So how we can gain primacy? Either we 100% somebody, but we really don't have to worry about that because these 3 can chip damage somebody due to Primal Surge. We can take their leader out. So Dacko's attacks can do that, but not his follow-up attack. And we'll talk about his follow-up attack when we break him down a little bit more. So that's the only way he can really get it from an attack, is if it's the leader he's taking down. And lastly, if we hold 4 objectives. It's rather unlikely. You're probably not doing it. And when you get it, that's how you inspire. That's why there's no gold boxes here, is you have an inspire ability. Well, with an inspire ability, if that fighter were to die, the one with the ability granting your warband inspirations, you lose your inspiration like method, at least your primary method. There's 2 backups in this deck. So if Hedkrakka ever goes down, the inspiration game plan goes down with him. And so that's something you want to keep in mind. You want to keep him safe. Thankfully, he starts on 4 health. They all do. Makes them extremely hardy fighters, and he starts on 2 dodge. So he's going to be your most survivable from an incoming attack. So we'll start by finishing off the breakdown on him. He's got this spell attack here that's range 3, but Crushing says if he does it adjacent, he gets +1 damage. When he inspires, that's +2 damage on that adjacency. So he can walk up to somebody and bonk them for 3 damage on a 2 dice looking for focus spell attack. It's really cool. It's something you always want to remember, always keep in your back pocket. It also makes his range 2 attack more accurate. Now, normally, your first inspires, it's going to be match dependent, but most of the time it's going to be Wallop or Tooth Dagger. So with Wallop, he starts out with Leveler, For those familiar with the card, in Championship Glory Seeker, he has built-in Glory Seeker. So +1 damage if the target has a wounds characteristic of 4+. And he gets to keep that when he inspires. But his ability, or his Big Champa attack, gains cleave as well. So he becomes a menace to your 4+ health fighters that are rocking that 1 or 2, generally 1 shield. He can just cut through them like butter. And he gains Lucky War Paint when he inspires. So does Dacko. It's located here, so it's hard, or sometimes people miss it. You can re-roll 1 dice in this fighter's defense rolls. So they're never going to get to 2 dodge in this build, but they are going to get the ability to re-roll, and that could help them out. And then Tufnaga, we'll leave the ones inspired that we've already talked about. Tufnaga, we've broken down tireless trackers. That really only matters at the beginning of round 1. The timing on this is after the roll-off for players and after the decision on who's going to go first. So you get to know who's going to go first before you decide to push Wallop and Dacko forward, 1 closer to their leaders. And then, let's see. So we start on 3 swords. We go up to 4. We gain Savage. This is Grievous. They just used to not have Grievous keyworded. If they did at the time, this would say Tufdaga's, and this would say Grievous instead of Savage, guarantee. On a critical hit, this attack damage has +1 damage. So that's the main thing for him, and the fact that he gets up to 2 dodge. Now, one of the things I love about Forkrankas is we have some guard tech in here, so we can crank Tufdaga up to 2 dice on guard, and Hedkrakka 2. So they don't have rerolls, but they've got great defensive profiles. And then Dacko over here. The only thing we really haven't broken down about him is specifically lots of arrows. I kind of hinted at it. Reaction after this fighter's activation. If this fighter has no move or charge tokens, make this attack action, then give this fighter 1 charge token. So 90% of the time, how this is going to play out is I'm going to attack once with his bow, regardless of which side I'm on. Attack once, and then as long as I don't have a move or a charge token, which I shouldn't, because I usually have pushed him onto an objective at the beginning of the game where I want him, an objective or a feature token, and then he's just a bubble around that, and we'll react and we'll do another shot. This is important. It gets him a charge token. It also counts as a reaction, and we have a surge where we're looking for 2 reactions. So he is important to that surge unless we find cards that are going to facilitate that surge later. So he's kind of always, it's called dead sneaky. You're always thinking about Dacko in the context of scoring dead sneaky, and if he dies, that card does get harder to score. But one other like tech trick with him is you can use lots of arrows after like taking a guard action with him. You can use it after like a stun action with him. It's move and charge tokens it's checking for, but after his activation, you can make this attack profile and give yourself a charge token. So you could stun or guard. That's really all that you have for tech trips there. But being able to put him on guard and then put a shot off, that can be earthworks plus some damage down the lane, or at least a reaction towards dead sneaky, all in one move. So he's pretty vital to dead sneaky, as mentioned. I don't know why I zoomed out. All right, so now as we talk about the rest of the deck, kind of the things I want to get out of today's episode is I want this to be a cohesive picture. I'm going to spend probably less time on what cards didn't make it in, but I am writing an article to, if I had really kind of thought this through, I would have made sure these came out at the same time. But if I'm being totally open, I started writing this article over a year ago. There was a user in the Vassal Discord who asked me to write down my thoughts on the warband, and that they would read the article if I wrote it. And then there were a number of individuals that echoed that, and that felt really, really good at the time. And I remember writing something like unexpected encouragement. I have a hard time writing, but I'll see what I can do. And I started at that time, and I guess I didn't think it was very good. I can be really critical on myself, especially when it comes to writing things. So I ended up just foregoing it. Well, I dug it back up ahead of today's episode, and I was over halfway done with it, and I don't think it was a bad read at all. So I think I was too harsh on myself, and so I'm going to release that as well. So look out for that. I'll make sure that there's a link below once I get that going. I'm actually hoping to write it by the end of the week, or like finish it up maybe tonight. I have a little bit of free time tonight and this weekend. So at the latest by the end of the weekend, I'm hoping to have that up. So if you're in the future, if it's let's see what if it's May 19th for you, there's a good chance I've actually already posted this and it's reading material for you as well. So we're going to break down more of the why nots in that article, and here we're going to try to build a cohesive picture around what we did take, and we're going to try to like teach you how to best play this warband, because I want as many people sending this deck off as I can get. So we're going to do a board breakdown too. I've got some board images all prepared, and we'll be talking about those probably back and forth as we go through objectives, gambits, upgrades here. All right, so we've talked a lot about Earthworks and Bold Sortie already, just being the spark for this warband. Bold Sortie, so yes, we want to charge off of a feature token, but the best part about it is we don't need to land that attack. So we get a consolation prize just for our trouble. I love that about it. Earthworks is also really great because we can take that guard action with Daco and then still take a shot, which is something I did not know for the longest time. Like, it's one of those things, I talk about this on the show a lot, where you summarize something and then you forget like the precise wording and how that can actually change functionality. And so there have been plenty of times where I've been playing this warband, or like there was a long time where I played this warband where I didn't realize that was available to Daco. So the other way to score Earthworks outside of just taking a guard action, but that's worth it. I'll take an action for a Surge any day, especially if I can get it onto fighters that I want to hold, which is all of them with this build. If I can bump up dodge and if I can bump up 2 dice, like, so this is the perfect warband to be tossing guard tokens at. The only one that would be better would be Mournflight, which is why I had that time freeze obsession with them. All right, so yeah, the other piece of Earthworks here is not Walking Wall, Siege Master. So reaction after this fighter's activation, if this fighter is on a feature token within one of no one's territory, choose up to 2 friendly fighters on feature tokens. Give each chosen fighter 1 guard token. Something really nice about this. Yes, it's a reaction that goes towards Dead Sneaky. We have 6 of those in the deck, 4 in the shape of ploys and 2 in the shape of upgrades. And then we also have Daco's reaction. So what that means is, in talking about Dead Sneaky, we have over a fourth of our deck able to assist Dead Sneaky as well as a fighter. So it's an extremely reliable card. And Siege Master here, you don't have to give the guard token to the one that triggered this. Very often you're going to want to, but not always. So that's good to know that you can actually toss the guard tokens onto other individuals. Maybe you already have one on this fighter, or maybe you're really worried about fortifying the positions on the other individuals. Maybe they're helping you out with stockpile, and you don't want them to be moved. So that's good to keep in mind. So that's Earthworks and Bold Sortie all sorted, and Dead Sneaky too. We've talked, I think, in full about what we can do to make Dead Sneaky work for us. Daco's your key to this card. He essentially takes the card count that goes into this down to 1 instead of 2. Bring It On. Love this card. What's not to love about this card? An enemy trying to attack you with a charge, and they failed to take you out of action with that charge. Very often, that's going to be the case. You have 4 health. That first hit, that little love tap, is probably going to score you Bring It On. Now, the later the game goes, the and depending on your opponent's familiarity with your deck, like if they've seen Bring It On before, um, they can start planning around this by not charging you anytime at least they can manage it, unless they're going in for that kill shot. So it's something that players can play around, but it's very difficult for them to do so. When I play against like Wellner's Exiled Dead, I know that this card is pretty dead until I can kill D'Antelos. So very often this will be one that like goes into my objective discard after round one in a matchup like that, where it's like, oh, you've got all of these movement tricks to get into position. You're not going to be charging me. Dang it. All right, this one's gone. But normally this is a very free score. Here we go. This card is not... This is the worst surge for Hedkrakkas. This is a great surge in general, but for them, it's their worst surge in this pairing. And I've considered swapping it out, but I always come back to it. Like I've considered, I think if there is a case that can be made for, what's it called? I should load up the bottom here. Raw materials. Raw materials is the name of the card. There's a case for raw materials to be made in there where after you've killed somebody, at least one person is dead, essentially out of action. You bring a token placement in. Yeah. So you place a feature token within 1 hex of no one's territory during an action phase if one or more enemy fighters are out of action. So this is a card I've kind of considered being in that slot, but this isn't as reliable. So first off, you need to get a kill out of the way. Second, you need to be able to place a feature token. Well, if they've plundered, you've already got one in, so they've prevented your ability to do so. So now you have to manipulate one you already have, and so you're going to have to do that with something like Bold Engineer, and I don't bring Bold Engineer in this one. So just with the fact that we want to rely on that one token that we're already bringing in with Fearsome Fortress, Raw Materials has never edged out Here We Go. But it's the card that I consider the most for that spot. I've considered Lethal Defenses, and I've considered... there's another one about being attacked. Scrolls immediately after an enemy fighter is taken out of action within 1 hex of one or more feature tokens that are within 1 hex of no one's territory. With the way I play them, you could lure people into these positions. However, I find that your hardest matchups are going to be the ones where you're playing back and protecting essentially like 2 feature tokens that maybe aren't even on like the no one's territory belt there, what we refer to as fortress territory. So this can be, it's got a good bandwidth, like within 1 hex of that token. And I think this has a good chance to slot in here. Like if you try this deck and you don't like Here We Go, I'm kind of just giving you suggestions here, ones that I've definitely thought through a lot. And I'm not 100% sure what the right answer is for this slot. For me, I know it's Here We Go, but for you, it could look different. So the other option for this slot is, that's Beastbound Assault. There we go. Let's look at surges. Surge. Impregnable defenses. Score this immediately after an enemy fighter's failed attack action that targeted a friendly fighter on a feature token within 1 hex of no one's territory. So this one doesn't make it in because of they have to fail an attack, and 2 of the fighters that are inevitably going to find themselves in these positions eventually, Wallop and Dako, and even early game Tooth Daka, they've only got 1 dodge, and so you can, like, you're going to take an attack. Like, you have 4 health to soak up attacks, so I find often the attacks are landing, and then Impregnable Defenses just isn't scoring for you. So this can be a bit hard. So for me, the right answer for this slot is Here We Go, but I kind of wanted to represent that it's the most contested slot. And if I was playing an aggro game plan, this would be in here, no question. But the fact that I kind of hold back makes this harder, right? Because I have to have, at the beginning of the game, 4 charge tokens on my fighters to make this happen, or get them all across the line into enemy territory. I'm not getting them into enemy territory. That's not the play. So I am going to be trying to get this off of charge tokens, which means I'm going to be mulliganing this card most of the time. There are two cards in here that you're going to be mulliganing when you see them, and it's Here We Go and Great Hunters, because Here We Go becomes significantly easier later into the game. Like as you start losing fighters, round 2, round 3, this can become an auto score. You know, if you've only got one fighter left, oh, they charged. Oh, there we go. Or even they've just crossed the line. They're in enemy territory. Instant. 1 glory. So this is a late game surge, not an early game surge. And Green Fury, the only other surge I haven't covered. Again, you have health that you can soak some damage with. So score this immediately after an activation in which a friendly fighter with 1 or more wound counters made 1 or more successful attack actions. So you took a little bit of damage, and then you attacked back successfully. That card, like all cards based on dice, can flow really smoothly or be a pain in the butt. There have been plenty of times where I have actually hoped that my opponent would land some damage or ping me so that I can get this going. There have been times where I've run boards with lethals, which I don't necessarily think is the greatest idea, but it's something I've done because you can just run through a lethal during a charge, and then that's going to get you Green Fury if you land that attack. In my experience, the game has always punished me. It's always been like, ha, nice trick. No, we're going to miss this attack. Good job damaging your fighter for free. And I was like, okay, well, there's the risk reward there. But yeah, sometimes this card's awesome. Other times, like it sits there and either waits for you to take damage on the right fighters, or it sits there and waits for you to get a successful attack with your already damaged fighters before they die. But overall, really good. So moving on to their end phase availability. So Hunt the World Spirit and Smash 'em are 2 cards I normally would not run in the same deck. However, out of what's available to them in their 12 end phase cards, this is I find this to be the best. Like Smash 'em is specifically the problem. It's the one that would normally get edged out, but the reward is worth it. So if you kill 2 fighters, then you have primacy, which you're probably going to have from the kills. Then you're going to be able to score 2 glory off of this. Hunt the World Spirit, and you'll see the tension here. Hunt the World Spirit wants you to be holding 3 objectives. Sometimes that's how I score this. Or 2 objectives and have the primacy token. I failed to mention here with Smash 'em, it's 2 and the primacy, or 3 kills without the primacy. Just out of action. Could have been previously. You could have banked those kills, and they're just continuing to do work for you. They don't have to be within the same round or anything like that. But the tension here between Hunt the World Spirit and Smash 'em is Hunt the World Spirit is looking for you to be in exact positions. You want to be holding objectives, whereas Smash 'em has you chasing targets. So in this deck, Smash 'em is the trap card that you need to be mindful of. You don't want it to pull you away from everything else you're doing. So although it's great, make sure that you're not sacrificing scoring to make it happen. All of the other scoring in this deck is positional, especially in the end phase. So Conquer Domain here. One of my favorite cards in the game, probably my favorite objective in the game at this time. Score this in an end phase. If there's a friendly fighter on a feature token within 1 hex of no one's territory, gain 1 additional glory point for each other friendly fighter on a feature token within 1 hex of no one's territory. So however many objectives and features you're on within that fortress territory, you're going to get a point for each. Now, in some matchups, this is 1. In some matchups, well, I usually try to get at least 1 out of it, but like in some of your harder matchups where you get long boarded and you're hanging back and you're just holding on to your 2 objectives and like dealing with the funnel of fighters that is coming in, Conquer Domain can be really hard and you can just toss it. But if you go wide and you fill that area with a ton of things, this card can just be phenomenal. I have scored 4 off of it. Obviously, that's the max you can score with these fighters, and it's super fun when you do. Like going wide board and then filling up the middle and fighting over it is a way to scrap. So there are a few cards that also just benefit this. A few mechanics. One is Walking Wall. Walking Wall is phenomenal. It's actually going to help us with Underground Fortress as well. So for the purpose of cards with the Fearsome Fortress symbol, while this fighter is not on a feature token, this fighter is considered to be on a feature token, and this fighter's hex is considered to contain a feature token that cannot be flipped. So Walking Wall, just a fighter with this upgrade on them can count towards Conquering Domain as long as they're hanging out within the region described. And you can use Redeploy. Choose one friendly fighter on a feature token in your territory. Push that fighter up to 4 hexes. At the end of that push, that fighter must be on a feature token. So before scoring, you can use Redeploy on a back objective and push somebody up. This is why, like, I don't normally throw away Conquer Domain. There are so many tricks in this deck to help you at least get one out of it, if not more. That like it's really fun and it's really flexible. So Redeploy can take you from like a safe position and push you up so that all of a sudden you're now contributing to Conquer Domain. And actually, Walking Wall and Redeploy, tech trick here, these combo amazingly. As long as your fighter with Walking Wall is in your territory when you play Redeploy, if you select this fighter, then you can push them 4 hexes anywhere because they are considered to also end on an objective or feature token because of Walking Wall. So that's pretty great. And that's actually going to be really big for Underground Fortress. So we're just going to start talking about that one as well. But the other item with Conquer Domain is anytime you can plunder next to an objective, especially in Fearsome Fortress territory, plunder. Like get that second cover out, get it in. If it can stand next to an existing feature token, all the better, because that'll serve Underground Fortress. But at a minimum, it gives you another place to then land on and get Conquered Domain that you didn't have available to you before. So Plunder's big because Plunder's also a reaction. So Plunder can help you get dead sneaky. All right, so Underground Fortress. Score this in an end phase if 3 or more friendly fighters are on feature tokens and 2 or more of those fighters are adjacent. Now, I used to not run this card. This is the card that's worked its way into the deck over iterations and at LVO. This is the one I mentioned about Ephelum. So I was worried about my scoring into Ephelum. I wanted to continue to try to bring that floor up, especially if I wasn't planning on interacting with them. And one thing that my crew and I have like all adapted as a tournament strategy is before an event, once you know what your pairing is, you know you're bringing this Warband, you know you're bringing this Universal deck, try playing at least one game with a rival's version of that pairing. Whether you bring the Warband deck alone or you bring the Universal pairing alone, what this does is it forces you to experience the deck not in the pairing, and it forces you to consider cards that you maybe overlooked, maybe had not played. Underground Fortress is a card that when we were practicing in Vegas for LVO, I had done a pairing test, a rivals test with Fearsome Fortress where I just plugged that in, played against somebody else doing the same with their pairing. They just plugged in one half and then we fought. I realized that Underground Fortress was not as hard as I thought it was. So 3 fighters is what has always pulled me away from this. However, you can position your objectives and your feature tokens to assist this. You can also use Walking Wall to assist this, and you can use Plunder to assist this. So we're going to jump into boards a little bit here so I can show you exactly what I'm talking about. Here, what your key is, I should have made a key. Next time I do a deck deconstruction, there will be a key to show you exactly what I mean by these symbols. So the star, that's going to be your fortress token, the one that your plot card allows you to put down. And these are like the ideal spots for them. So some of these places, there's ideal spots. You're not getting both, obviously. And then the blue is fighter deployments. Now, when I did Mornfrost, I did all of their deployments. Here, I didn't want to do all their deployments. I wanted to focus more on where you're going to be deploying Wallop and Daco. Because you want to always think about the push that you get at the beginning of the game from Tireless Tracker. That is like what makes this deck sing. The white square or circles, those are objectives. The numbering is like if you were to be given, up to 3 objectives, where your placement priority is going to be. So, like for example, we're going to place an objective here, and then if it gets back to us and a legal spot is here, we're going to go here. If it gets back to us and there's a legal spot, we're going to go here. So in this example, we're only putting 1 in fortress territory. But over here, in this example, we're putting 2 in fortress territory. And this is matchup dependent. Like there is no like guarantee that this is like the best answer going into like each and every warband. These are just some of the more how do I phrase this? When I play them, these are very common setups for me. I'm always adapting my setup game plan, but these are great game plans if you're looking to start out with them, or if you're looking to just kind of know where my head's at. Like what's really good here with this one in the top left. So like let's say we have an offset, maybe even a max offset like this over here. Then we know for a fact that their leader is allowing us to push here and is allowing us to push here. And then we can decide, I think, so with a max offset, yep. So we could still decide on either of these placements, but this is a really good placement here because you have 2 starting hexes then, especially if you're going to be aggressive in this matchup. So if you're going to be aggressive, you can use this and this to push right into place at the beginning. But if you're going to be passive, you can toss Wallop, usually Wallop. Daco is going to be kind of your sacrificial lamb a lot of the time, as well as kind of your scout because of that range 3 bubble that he can lock down for you, and the way he can score earthworks for you. You can push up here, and then this just kind of becomes like an extra like passive placement that you can move somebody to and know that they're securing that hold 2 game plan for you. So we'll talk a little bit more about this, but I just wanted to show you, how fortress, or what is it called? Underground Fortress. Yeah, Underground Fortress is going to work. So like in this scenario, you're going to want a fighter here, here, and on one of these. You've got 3 fighters on feature tokens then, and you're off to the races. Now, imagine if you can't get these spots, or it doesn't make sense to, like it's going to put you in too much risk. Then with Walking Wall, you can just plant somebody right here and on 3 and 2, and all of a sudden you're meeting it as well. So Walking Wall really opens up Underground Fortress. If you get those in the same hand, like consider keeping that hand. As well as then where you plunder, if you can always plunder next to an existing feature token, you open up possibilities for Underground Fortress. Now this card is obviously no good when you're down to 2 fighters. But this slot used to be Eye of Gorkamorka, and Eye of Gorkamorka is terrible. And I used to hate pursuing it because of all the requirements for it. And yeah, and it's only 1 glory. So after I had done that test where I decided, you know what, Underground Fortress isn't as hard as I thought it was, I had decided, yes, it's hard. But if I'm going to pursue a hard objective in my deck, I'd rather pursue one that was worth 2 glory instead of one that's worth 1. So score this in end phase if you have the primacy token and your leader holds an objective. You'd be surprised how much of a pain in the butt this card can be, because it forces your leader onto an objective, and that's maybe not always where you want him. And like, so maybe you want him up on a cover token, helping you with Conquered Domain, and he has the 2 dodge there, and it's like, oh, okay, well now he's not helping you with Eye of Gorkamorka, dang it. And as you kind of start scoring your objective stuff too. Nothing in the surge department is looking for you to be on objectives. So after a round ends, you can actually flip objectives over to cover and support your dodge fighters. And then later flip those back into objectives as you need going into, as you're closing in on your end phase. And Underground Fortress doesn't care if you continue to be on a cover token, which is a thumbs up. But Eye of Gorka Morka would care, and only for 1 glory. And you have to have primacy at that time. So they have to have not stolen it back from you, and you have to have found a way to collect it. And sometimes there are games where you just can't get it, and so you're not going to score 1 point, and you've been forcing your leader to hang back on this spot for when you did get that primacy, pulls you off of it. This card can be a pain. Hey guys, I'm going to read a couple comments here. Skylar is king of decks from Sleek's Bowl. Thank you very much. And you are the king of the downtrodden warbands. You've kind of become the underdog champion in the community, in my mind. Always giving life to things like Black Powder and Sleek, as well as Condemners, but man, they can be ferocious. Anyways, Mr. Fourth Maz, I don't think that you can use redeploy with Walking Wall because objective didn't have positioning in territory. The issue was with upgrade that granted cover. It wasn't counting as cover in someone's territory. It was an FAQ. Good call out. Man, I used to have a graphic. Let me see if I can't find that graphic. So it compared Cover of Darkness, which is what you're talking about, with Walking Wall, and I promise you it works. The wording still works. There was something specific. No, you're sending me down a rabbit hole. We're going to look this up. So this website is called Underworld's FAQ.info. And if you haven't checked this website out, I love it. The reason I love it is because you can search for FAQs. So especially since we have previous season designer commentary and existing season designer commentary, and they're 2 different documents, and so you got to think to yourself like which document it is in. And then sometimes GW has a habit of making errata that I feel like should have been the answer to a question, or the answer of a question that I feel like should have been an errata. And so then it's like, well, now all of a sudden the errata document's in the conversation, and you're kind of like, which one of these documents is this question in? And you have to open them up and search through all 3 of them. This website allows you to just search in one spot. It doesn't currently have the errata in it, but I've actually chatted quite a bit with the site admin, and errata is coming here in the near future. So you'll be able to search all of your Underworld's questions FAQ questions in one spot, and errata questions, and get all the results. So let's look up Cover of Darkness, because I know that's what you're referring to. If I play Cover of Darkness, nope, not that one. Here we go. If a fighter has the Darkening Stone upgrade, can I use the Cover of Darkness ploy to push that fighter into a hex that is not a cover hex at the start of that push? No. And the reason for this is because we're going to look up Cover of Darkness real quick. So we're going to load up Championship. Cover of Darkness talks about moving into a hex. And so the hex, when you move into it, like at the time of moving into it, it was blank. It was empty. It was not a cover hex. It was after you moved into it that it became a cover hex. And that's why Cover of Darkness doesn't work. And Walking Wall does. Walking Wall with redeploy. Cover of Darkness. Oh, that's not a championship card anymore. Wow, it's a relic card. All right. Loading. Please wait. All right. Cover of Darkness. Here we go. Push one friendly fighter up to 2 hexes into a cover hex. Into. So it was not. Whereas Walking Wall this fighter is considered to be on a feature token, right? Very similar language to Darkening Stone. So this isn't the piece of the puzzle that's different. The piece of the puzzle that's different is redeploy. Choose one friendly fighter on a feature token in your territory. Check, that's you. You walking wall, you. And then push that fighter up to 4 hexes. So we're just pushing him. And then at the end of that push, that fighter must be on a feature token. Guess what? You are. However, if this had said, push that fighter up to 4 hexes, so that at the end, push that fighter up to 4 hexes to move into, up to 4 hexes into a feature token hex, or into a hex containing a feature token, then it would not work. But the fact that it checks after your push is why it works, and it's really cool. So strongly recommend run Walking Wall for all the scoring it can help you out with, as well as that super cool trick. It can also help out with things like makeshift bombardment, determined push. It doesn't help with this one towards the nearest. Well, it can. We'll talk about this. Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, though, because that is a point of confusion, right? Those familiar with the Darkening Stone cover of Darkness FAQ, they might have summarized it and internalized it as, oh, I guess this combo doesn't work here as well. But I assure you it does. It's the difference between moving into versus checking afterwards. All right. So that was a cool tangent to jump into. And I don't think we've talked about Stockpile yet or Great Hunters. Wellner, this is making me want to break out my Fearsome Fortress deck. I've been saving it for the end of League quarterly. Break it out. Do it. And if you got Madmob, give this a try. I think you'll enjoy it. Well, no, not you. You don't like playing warbands that have less than 6 fighters. Yeah. All right. And it doesn't have like movement economy like breaks. Like, what do you, who are you? Here I am, the one assuming that you're going to be playing this. But you should give it a try. All right. So Stockpile. Score this in an end phase if your warband holds objectives whose numbers add up to 6 or more. So you're looking at the 5 and the 1, the 5 and anything, 4 and anything but the 1, right? So as long as you're holding 2 objectives and they're adding up to 6 or more, the or more is the beauty here. This card would not be in the deck if it made you exact value search for this. Very often, I'm able to get 2 or 3 objectives in my territory, at least within my reach. That's going to help me out with Underground Fortress. This card can be the easiest thing in the world, or can be an absolute pain in the butt. It really just depends on where the numbers land, right? Like if you end up with the 1, 2, and the 3 as the only ones within reach, then you have to hold all 3 of those, and this card gets really hard. But if you land the 5 or the 4 on your side, then this card's really easy. So that is the way of Stockpile, though. Stockpile is not really made better or worse by the deck that we have here. And then lastly, Great Hunters. Score this in the 3rd end phase if each surviving friendly fighter is in enemy territory and you have the primacy token, or there is no more than 1 surviving enemy fighter. This card is phenomenal and is worth being in the deck, even though it's a 3rd end phase. Now, excuse me, when I started playing Underworlds, I always had a 3rd end phase card in my deck. Because when I started playing, it was Championship. So if your warband didn't have a 3rd end phase card, then there was a good chance the Universal Pool did, and that it was worth running. So I'd always run one that would be worth 3 points. There was a card that I used to run. This is a tangent. It's just gonna bother me that I can't think of the name of it. Is what it is. Set the Tempo? Yeah, Set the Tempo. There used to be a blog with an amazing technical writer that also ran this card. Now this isn't a 3rd end phase, but it commonly felt like one. You scored 2 or more dual objective cards and 2 or more hybrid objective cards, and you've scored 6 or more objective cards. As long as that was true, 3 points. So I used to run cards like this. Like if I didn't run a 3rd end phase, I'd run this, and I would make sure that I like had a good saturation to make this happen. But so when you run them, you want to make sure they're worth having a bricked hand for, or like a bricked card slot for. Because the reason I brought up my tenure with third end phases here is if I run one, I'm going to draw it in my opening hand. It's just gonna happen to me. It used to become a thing where like I would draw my opening hand, and like Mulligan used to not be as good as it was. Like I draw my hand and I'd be like, yep, I'm playing Underworlds, because there that third end phase would be staring me in the face, and I'd be like, I guess I'm playing, down one objective slot all game. And as long as you start with 2 other surges, that's not necessarily an instant mulligan. If you think those 2 other surges are banger, you can survive a game where Great Hunters hangs out the whole time in your opening hand, or you surge into it early, or you mulligan into it. And it's worth the payout. So this card scores with that aura statement, right? So if you've got them down to 1 or fewer fighters, even if they kill you, they table you, you're still getting the 3 points from this. But let's say the game isn't going in that direction. They've got multiple fighters still alive. As long as you can get over the line, and a lot of the tools that we have, the pushes that we have, can help bridge that gap and get you closer to getting over the line with your surviving fighters. As long as you can get over the line and guarantee yourself primacy, then this scores as well. And the charged out rule helps with this a lot. If you're only down to 1 or 2 fighters, you're charged out, you can still move after being charged out and get yourself over the line. There used to be a big push or pull with this objective, and I still ran it, where it would be like, do I charge into my territory to try to kill the person standing there to get the primacy token that I'm going to need, or whatever I like, maybe the additional glory from killing them, maybe I'm trying to push them off of an objective, whatever it might be. But do I dip back into my territory with that charge because I don't currently have a push that can get them back over? And then maybe the gamble was, if I land this attack, I'm down to 1 enemy and I don't have to worry about it anymore. But if I miss, what do I do? And now that gamble is lessened by the fact that you can make that charge, and then you can do a full move action to get over into, or back into enemy territory. So Great Hunters, super reliable. So we've broken down what our game plan is, and a major theme here is hold 2 to 3 tokens, right? That's present in Underground, Fortress, Stockpile, Conquer Domain, and Hunt the World Spirit. So there's 4 end phase that are looking for us to be holding some combination of tokens. Earthworks and Bold Sortie run off of that as well. Bring it on. That works fine, when you're in those positions. Dead Sneaky doesn't really need you to be in those positions, but I like comboing Dead Sneaky with something like Earthworks. So we have a lot that's just kind of focusing majority of the game's game plan on counterpunching and holding those spots. So we're gonna dive into what tools we have available to us, and then we're gonna really look at the boards and kind of like what some of our first activations could look like. And then, for the most part, that'll be a wrap. But I would love to hear any questions you might have. So feel free to toss those in the chat. I'd love to address them. One card that we're going to talk about that's not in the deck, but we're going to address why it's not in the deck, is due to a rule change. This used to be a card I ran, and didn't leave home without. But now I don't, and that's called the Big Stomp. The Great Stomp? I think it's the Great Stomp. We'll see how good it is. In name. Dire Chasm. Hedkrakka is a Madmob. Refresh data. Spinnerite. It should definitely go to your table next. He made a comment about how Madmob maybe goes to his painting table next. Absolutely should. Okay, so what was I looking for here? I was looking for, the big, or the great. Oh my gosh. So I have a microphone in front of me, and my hands are kind of in a position that they're not normally. But for those who don't know this, there's usually bumps on the keyboard where the home row is. And so generally I don't really need to actually do a sight check as to where my hands are, because you can just feel where those bumps are, and they should be on your index fingers. Yeah, anyways, the Great Stomp. Push each friendly fighter up to 1 hex towards the nearest enemy fighter. So this card used to be amazing because you got to decide up to one could be 0 on pushes. But when they came up with an FAQ that said, hey, win is up to 1, win can up to 1 be 0. And they said in all instances outside of pushes, require that you move at least 1. That's when this card had to go, especially in this deck. If I was playing an aggro deck, this could still make it in there. And then push each allows this to still work if somebody's blocked. The push each and the up to 1. I guess the up to 1 doesn't really factor in there anymore. But if you've got somebody up against an enemy fighter and they can't push, as long as at least one other fighter can push, this card can be played. But you do have to push everybody that's capable of doing so. Now, so this used to be great in this deck because I could choose the fighters that were already on their objectives. I'd be like, oh, no, you stay put. You're going to push up to 0. But as soon as this changed, then to get people into the right positions, you're going to often pull people off and put off the positions that you wanted them on. So it has to go. Aggro game plan, totally bring a card like that. Here, no. So that got replaced by take your positions. So choose up to 2 friendly fighters in your territory, up to 2. So we can choose 1 here, which is often the case. Other than your leader, push each chosen fighter 1 hex towards the nearest feature token. I like to swap a lot. If my leader dies, and people do like to gun for my leader, I have salvage fuel. You've heard how much I love salvage. So this card becomes another card, and there is so much quality jam-packed into these 20 cards that I don't mind another. In fact, this deck sings off of its ability to find some of these cards. So I mentioned earlier we were going to talk about, some of your first activations. Now, if you are able to get 2 full pushes onto objectives, onto feature tokens at the beginning of the game, very often your first 1 to 2 activations is going to be drawing a card. So because you've already been spared 2 activations that you would have needed otherwise to get onto those positions by their Tireless Tracker's ability. So now that you're in position, you've just got to maintain. And yes, you want to scrap. The orcs love a good scrap. But you have time to go find cards at the beginning of the game and make sure that you see more of your deck. Particularly, you're going to want to see Primal Brutality. So the more cards you can filter early, the better chances you're going to see Primal Brutality in your game. Where is Tanglebriar, you fool? I enjoy that card so much, but no, it does not belong in here. If I was running raw materials, maybe a case for it. But man, you'd be hard pressed to find a slot for it. So take your position. Now, it almost didn't make it in because there are plenty of games where you'll draw this and you're already in those positions and you're like, well, I don't want to move. Or the only one that's not is your leader and you can't choose your leader. So that is a downside of this card, but you kind of consider it as scoring insurance. If somebody comes and drives you back off your position, you get to play take your positions and then you're back into scoring. So that's where this excels. And the nearest feature token sometimes can be your walking wall fighter. So that's like a technical trick that can sneak up sometimes is your opponent might be like, oh, he doesn't have his other pushes left, so he can't push closer. And then you're like, well, actually, I've got walking wall underneath that fighter. So yes, this fighter can push a little closer. Another problem with take your positions is you can't push any fighter that's on like a cover and you want to push them onto the objective that's sitting right next to them. It's it's feature token. So the cover that they're on will lock them down. Or when walking wall can go wrong for you with take your positions is they're already on their nearest feature token, your walking wall fighter. So as soon as you put walking wall down, they're not going to be candidates for take your position. So things to keep in mind. But ultimately, the scoring insurance here is worth the slot, and salvage gives it a little bit of a bump. And that's actually probably like the worst card in here. The rest are fantastic. So let's dive into the rest of the gambits here. So Deckbox, +1 dice to friendly fighters' range 1 attack actions in the next activation. If you have the primacy token when you play this card, this effect persists until you lose the primacy token or until the end of the round. This card's a total power trip. Either A, you just need it for the +1 dice to guarantee something, and you don't have primacy yet. Maybe this is going to help you get primacy. That's fine. Like a +1 dice on the next attack and the next activation is a good card already. This is a great card if you have primacy, because you're going to get that benefit for that whole round. Now that's only going to apply to Wallop and Tufthaga, but we do bring a weapon. We bring Mason's Great Hammer. This is for Dako, especially if he gets Void Cursed. But this goes up in value as well by things like Debigwa being able to look at this range 1 attack and boost it, especially since it has Grievous 1. Primal Brutality. So if this card just said gain the primacy token, it would be in every one of Hedkrakka's Madmob's decks, period. Like no matter how you've built them out. This is their staple card. You don't leave home without this. But you can also, like, there's more on here for your reading pleasure. If you just wanted something to read, or discard the primacy token. If you discard the primacy token, choose one friendly fighter with no charge tokens. The chosen fighter makes one range 1 or range 2 attack action, then give the chosen fighter 1 charge token. Now, I do jest about the rest of this being reading material, but the charged out rule has made this better as well. So this used to be something you completely ignored and never used because it cost you a charge token. But now, out of nowhere, somebody with a range 1 or range 2 attack action can just make an attack and gain a charge token, which charges your warband out. I would caution strongly ever using this for this ability. Like, make sure it's the right fit, and that you're not going to regret not having to gain the primacy function off this card. So 9 out of 10 times I use it for gaining the primacy token, but now with the way charged out works, sometimes I do dip into it for this second part. Ditch any and all power cards for the sake of the Great Tanglebriar. I won't do it. But as Wellner says here, I understand the Tanglebriar cut. It was one of my last cuts too. Yeah. It's a card I kind of always want to fit into decks, and I do like that they errated to make it work. And I actually think the errata made it better, probably indisputably. But no, it doesn't make it in here. Primal Conning. Choose one friendly fighter. Then if you have the primacy token, you can give the primacy token to an opponent, which is always just a fun thing to do. You always seem so nice. They're like, wait. If he's giving it to me, he probably has a plan to get it back. This is not a gift. This is a trap. This is a trick. Push the chosen fighter 1 hex, or up to 3 hexes if you gave the primacy token to an opponent. So being able to just push any friendly fighter 1 is just positionally great. But the fact that it flexes into 3 is fantastic. And if you have Primal Brutality in your hand, by the way, you keep this in your hand as like, you always want to second guess yourself when you go to play this, because you want to make sure that you're keeping it for the right moments, and you're not just burning it to get somebody inspired, unless that's the right play. But you want to, for the most part, see if you can't get primacy any other way and hold Primal Brutality. This is the card in the deck that you're not afraid to hold round to round to round, because at some point in time, it will pay off for you. So it's a card you always consider twice when you go to play it. And Primal Cunning is one of those cases where you consider maybe I do the push to 3, that would be perfect, and then maybe I use Primal Brutality to get it back. But is that the right time to play Primal Brutality? It might be. And it's really cool that this card has a bit more push and pull to it than kind of first blush. Unhinged Ferocity. Now this is the time where you don't want to have the primacy token, most of the time. This card's great either way. Reaction: use this after a friendly fighter's activation in which that fighter made one or more failed attack actions. So you run in, you fail your attack. Maybe you just got Bold Swordy off of that, which feels great. And then it's like, if you have the primacy token, discard the primacy token, and then that fighter makes one attack action. Remember, with attack actions made outside of the activation, which this one would be, and so would Primal Brutalities. You can't gain the primacy back off of these attacks because they're not happening within the space of an activation. They're happening after, outside of it. So you can't use this card to make another attack and then instantly get the primacy back if that attack is successful and take somebody out. But sometimes being able to make that extra attack is the gamble. But other times, if you don't have the primacy token, otherwise inspire that fighter. This is a backup inspire. This could be also a way to get somebody else inspired early. So very often if you get the primacy token and you're not losing the primacy token or giving it away, and it's really risky to give it away, then you're only getting one inspire per round. This can help you get an additional inspire. Like maybe you do this first and then you get primacy, and now you have two people that are inspired. Warpaint Ward, I love this card so much, but it does abandon me every once in a while. But when it doesn't abandon me, it's the best card in the world. Reaction, use this during an attack action that targets a friendly fighter. Before the deal damage step, roll 1 magic dice. On a roll of a crit, the combat sequence ends. Full stop. Which is nuts. Can't drive me back. You can't, you're dealing no damage. Today, with the way the rules are, that is a successful attack, but it actually used to just not be because you didn't deal damage to me. And that's all fine, because ultimately what you're really hoping for is for your fighter to just survive. That's why you're playing this. So for them to not only survive and then not be moved, and not take any damage of any sorts, fantastic. So that's the crit result. That's not the result you're going to see, but man, is it a rush when you do. On a roll of focus, instead reduce the damage dealt by 1 to a minimum 1. So sometimes it's best to play this on an attack that's coming in and dealing enough damage to set you up for another attack. Other times it's best to play this when, and I think this is more often the case, when an exact damage attack is coming in on you, and it's going to kill you. And you have this 50-50 to, either stop or reduce it. But sometimes you'll gamble and you'll hope for the crit, because that's just kind of the position you're in, where you're like, man, and this happens after or before the deal damage step. So you've already seen the rolls. So you've already failed defense rolls here, which is nice because you're actually able to combo this with Lucky Bone. Reaction after this fighter's attack roll, defense roll, or casting roll, discard this card. If you do, you can re-roll any number of dice in that roll. So if you've got somebody on 2 dodge and you really need them to survive, you can re-roll all their defense dice with Lucky Bone, and you're like, shit. I think that might be one of the first times I've sworn on the channel. Normally I try to avoid it. So sorry about that. But you're like, okay, I didn't defend. I'll sacrifice Lucky Bone. I'll try 2 dice again. Nope, I failed. Okay, well, last chance. Let's see if Warpaint Ward can save me. That's a possible sequence. And in that case, you really want this fighter to survive. And sometimes, yeah, there's a reason. They're targeting that fighter is they want that fighter dead too. And so they understand how important it is to you. And sometimes you end up tossing both cards into the mix. Determined Push. Reaction, play this after a friendly fighter's attack action. Pick one, push that friendly fighter 1 hex towards the hex their target occupied during the declare attack action step, which is fantastic, or 1 hex towards the nearest feature token, which is really fun, because sometimes you can make an attack. Let's not go to the long boards. So let's say there's a fighter here and you want to get here. Well, you can charge to where this blue circle is, attack, and then boop, pop onto there with Determined Push. Also a reaction, helping dead sneaky. A lot of what we've been looking at recently have been reactions. So that's great. Makeshift Bombardment. Choose 1 friendly fighter on a feature token and choose 1 enemy fighter visible to that friendly fighter and within 3 hexes of that friendly fighter. This doesn't require you to be on a feature token within fortress territory to do this. This is on any feature token, so this is a fantastic range. 3 hexes means you can do this from one feature token to another if they're within that minimum distance of each other. So pick one, stagger the chosen enemy fighter, or push the chosen enemy fighter 1 hex away from the chosen friendly fighter. So both results are really good. Most of the time you're going to use this for push, I find, but the fact that stagger is there is still helpful. People like to, once they figure out you're trying to camp on feature tokens and objectives and all that, then they try to block you by standing on them, and makeshift bombardment goes, please get off, and then you run on there. Same with something like determined push, right? You can run at somebody, attack them, push them off, and then determined push on. That's what a lot of the push is meant to help you do in this deck. And makeshift bombardment can work off a walking wall. Determined push can push you towards walking wall. This card on paper, like when you first read it, like it doesn't do anything on its own, but it does so much once you start looking at the rest of the picture. We talked a lot about redeploy, so I don't think we'll add too much to this conversation. Just a push of 4. We'll often take a fighter like straight, like no, it's rare it's seen coming. Like it's such a distance to have to consider it as a problem that it's hard to predict, and you can do so much with it. So Drom is a hard matchup for me, and I would often wait for the Gore Hulk to like try to do his overhead smash on one of my fighters, and then I'd redeploy away. So like you have tricks like that available to you. Or in one case, I actually redeployed somebody. I redeployed Wallop from the back line in to then come and attack that supported attack or like position to try to take the Gore Hulk out before he landed his overhead smash. Stuff like that. Take your positions we already talked about. Brutal Beast Spirits. This card is really sad when it doesn't go off. Really amazing otherwise. So Gambit spell, looking for focus, single focus. If cast, +1 move to friendly fighters in the next activation when they make a charge action, and +1 dice to friendly fighters' attack actions in the next activation made as part of a charge. So as long as you're charging, which is necessary for both parts of this, for the +1 move or the +1 dice, you can move, like you start in 3 movement speed with everybody. They do inspire up to 4, but very often you kind of need that 4. Everybody does this in Underworlds. They like kind of like count minimum distance where they're safe, right? And so if everybody's counting for 3, and then all of a sudden you can just bump that up to 4, that can be a game changer. And then the fact that it also gives you the +1 dice can boost it up. Like I don't know if I take this, if it's just the +1 move, but the both is phenomenal, and I understand why it's tied to a spell dice result, given that. So. Berserk Might. So this is a great strength if you have the primacy token, and that's what it's in here for. But if somebody walks up under one of your tokens, goes on guard, rude, you can just use this for knockback. So knockback can facilitate helping you continue to keep people off your tokens. But the +1 damage in here when you have when you have primacy is what this is here to do. So Wallop can just he can one-shot 4 health fighters if he has this and you have primacy. Same with somebody like Toothdaga. He's got 4 dice and Grievous, dealing 2 damage base. If he has this and he Grievous, then he can deal 4 damage in 1 hit. So Berserk Might is kind of like your big boy threat piece in this deck. Lucky Bone, we've already talked about. Free reroll on like a full reroll, but only once. Then you break this card. On defense, attack, or casting, so extremely flexible. I never build a deck for Hedkrakkas without it. Power of the Beast, +1 wound, +2 wounds instead while you have the primacy token. Now, this card looks very simple at first blush, but there is a lot of utility to this card. So once people realize that the primacy token is gonna leave you at the end of the round, it always leaves you and resets. They'll leave your fighter vulnerable a lot of the time. Like if they can't kill you, so if you're at 6 health and you have the primacy token, which is how much health you're going to be at, because everybody starts at 4. If your fighter has 6 health and they've done 5 damage to you, they're probably not going to invest that extra damage because they know that they're going to get this bounty of 2, and so they know that they can just leave that fighter be, which can be their mistake, because this fighter gets to hold onto its 6 health through scoring. So that fighter can still help with stockpile, hunt the world spirit, all of these things that require them to be on a feature token. They get a chance to help with that before they die. Um, so power of the beast actually keeps a fighter alive through scoring is kind of the main purpose of it here. Yes, +1 wounds to get yourself up to 5 can be enough to just keep you alive and keep you out of death's range. But where this card really elevates itself, and it is worth making your fighter large and awarding that bounty, is in the fact that you can keep scoring even with vulnerable with this fighter. Spirit of the Gorkamorka. You can reroll 1 dice in the spider's attack rolls for range 1 and range 2 attack actions. I mean, this is just great. You're gonna give this to Tooth or Wallop most of the time. It's going to depend on the matchup or the position those fighters are currently in. But it can also go on Dacko once he gets Mason's Great Hammer. And every once in a while it makes it onto my leader, but not too often because it can help with his range 2 attack as well. Spirit of the Beast. If you have the primacy token when you give this upgrade to a fighter, that fighter is inspired. So here's how we cheat or inspire. But more importantly, the fighter is on guard while you have the primacy token. I skipped a bit in here in the middle. When you gain the primacy token, this fighter is inspired. So when you give this to somebody, they will get inspired, like either immediately if you already have the primacy token, or once you gain the primacy token. So this helps. This is a little bit of insurance if your leader dies. But this is mainly here for while you have that primacy token, this fighter is on guard. You want this on Toothdaga, like as your primary choice, or Hedkrakka as your secondary choice. The fact that they can just run around on guard on 2 dodge is phenomenal. And obviously guard also helps then with your scoring positions. They can't drive you off of them. And this is one of the reasons why I brought up Siege Master can go on other people, because if it's my Spirit of the Beast fighter who's already on guard, who's also got Siege Master, because maybe I got these in a different order, maybe I got Siege Master first, then I can still be on guard as a result of Spirit of the Beast, and then toss 2 tokens out to other people with Siege Master. Thick Hide. If this fighter would be dealt precisely 1 damage, this fighter is not dealt that damage. This is ping insurance, right? But it does more than that. It's pretty comical with Warpaint Ward. So if you ever are going to take 2 damage and you Warpaint Ward successfully and reduce it down to 1, which like on a 50-50, you're either reducing it down to 1 or eliminating it altogether. Either way, same result. But if you take a 2 damage attack down to 1 with Warpaint Ward and then shake it off with Thick Hide, like you just said no to this incoming attack, and that's hilarious. This allows you to run through lethals too, and in anytime you're up against a ping situation, especially with where the meta was at, kind of still is, especially with Rhymeworm's Bite on the table, then this helps quite a bit, especially since Rhymeworm's Bite is like your worst pairing. You do not want to fight Rhymeworm's Bite with this deck. You can do it, but you kind of have to abandon that Fearsome Fortress token because it's a hazard hex, and they can do stuff with hazard hexes, which is a bummer. However, Walking Wall does not count for them, so keep that in mind. This is kind of like one of your routes in when you're against Rhymeworm's Bite. Is this only counts for cards that are looking for, or that have the Fearsome Fortress symbol, so they can't capitalize off this at all. So that's nice. All right, so Mason's Great Hammer, Cleave and Grievous, so another source of Cleave in the Warband, the ability to spike up to 3 damage. Again, most of the time this is going to go on Dacko, but it can go on Hedkrakka or even Wallop. Wallop's your last choice out of the 3 for it, but because it can go up to Grievous 1, or like it has this Grievous 1 potential, if you're fighting somebody with 3 health with Wallop, then Leveler is not going to trigger, so you're not going to get that auto 1 extra damage against them. So there's a world sometimes, especially if you have +1 dice going for you, where maybe you actually award him the hammer, and give him that cleave Grievous and hope for that swing of 3 damage. It's rare, but it is there. Most of the time this is for Daco. The reaction is nice. I'm glad it's there because it helps with that sneaky. But as soon as somebody plunders a token in, you can't use this. So that's a bummer. But that's not what it's there for. Siege Master, we've talked about quite a bit. Walking Wall, we've talked about quite a bit. And lastly, Kill Instinct. It is the only fighter restricted card in here. The fighter's range 1 attack actions have Cleave and Snare. This fighter being Doofdag. So card's phenomenal. Cleave and Snare on 4 dice, 2 damage with Grievous. So what's not to love? And if he dies before you get to see this, because a lot of people like to kill Doofdag because he is a threat, then you have salvage potential. So as you can see, this is just jam-packed with quality cards. And you can always identify exactly what each card is meant to do and how it fits into the overall game plan, which is important. You always want to be able to draw a line from your objectives to your power cards because you want their power cards to be tools serving your objectives as best as possible. So we've deconstructed the deck, we broke it down. I promised a little bit more time on boards. If anybody has any questions that they want me to tackle, please toss those into the chat now so that I can start taking a look at those once I get through a little bit of boards here. Otherwise, we're kind of closing in on the rest of, or the end of the video. Words are hard sometimes. Okay, so what I did is I prepared both a longboard deck here. I called it a deck because of work, PowerPoint slides and stuff like that. This is actually something I built in a tool called Snagit. I love Snagit. That's where all of this comes from. So I bought a home license for Snagit. So if you enjoy making documentation or graphs and stuff like this, professionally, I do a lot of like user instruction guides and like knowledge articles. So, which is why I don't like my writing, by the way, is because I write really technically. I find that either my humor is a bit overboard or my writing is a bit too dry. And sometimes I don't feel I can find the sweet spot. But the dry writing is what I fear because I have so much practice in dry writing where it's just meant to guide you through succinctly, how to accomplish a task. So in my job, I get to use a tool called Snagit, and I love it so much. I bought a home license for it so I can do stuff like this. But yeah, so these are not the only board configurations. These are just some that I recommend again. And I'm going to start with longboard because I think longboard's the more interesting conversation here, but we can take more of a look at these as well. So one of the reasons why longboard is something you want to think about a lot is because when people hear you say, my plot card is Fearsome Fortress, a lot of people will respond with, okay, you're getting longboarded, because they want to reduce that region in that would be Fearsome, or the fortress territory, your scoring territory. So like normally you're looking at, so like if these all pair up, if you got a perfectly squared wide board situation, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, plus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times 2 is 16, plus 7 is 23. So you have 23 spots that tokens can go. Now, mind you, 6 of those spots would be where only a Fearsome Fortress token could go. But the rest, are available for objectives if they're not blocked by starting hexes, things like that. So as soon as they longboard you, they've reduced that to 1, 2, plus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 12 instead of 23 potential positions. And in this case, 8 of them are available for objectives. But as soon as you, is that right? Yeah. But as soon as you put one within these 8, you generally block the rest. So like the best case to not block them is actually for the token to be here. And then here. Oh, wait, no. Yeah, right here. that's the only way to get like 2 objectives within this region, and you're not going for it. When you get longboarded, you immediately just tell yourself that conquered domain is not what you're flexing up into. That you're going to be looking for underground fortress, and like I feel like underground fortress is actually easier to score in a longboard situation, just because of the flow of the fight. Like it takes them longer to get to you, so you have more setup time for something like underground fortress. But people love to longboard you. So what I love to hand them is this board here, and then sometimes I hand them this board. This one can be well, actually, I really like both. I think this is actually my first choice for handing them. But both of these are boards I'll offer them if I think I'm going to be longboarded, or boards that I'll put forward myself if I think that longboarding is the strategy I need to go with. Like if I need to play extremely passively and force them to waste turns coming to me. And so the first, again, is where your first placement is going to be. So the reason your first placement is going to be here on this board is to eventually force yourself to have this objective here. So if you're only given 2 objectives, then kind of what you're trying to guarantee is this one and then this one. And this is an extremely passive game plan. And then if they had given you 3, because they're the ones that longboarded you, and you presented this board, then no matter if this board is flipped or not, you can actually guarantee these. You could do 1 here and then 2 here if they haven't blocked it already, and then 3 down here. But ultimately what you're trying to do is you're always trying to make sure that your Fearsome Fortress token is paired up next to another token. So like here's a really good underground fortress setup, but then you do need to hold all 3, and they know that. Like it's very easy for them to go, oh, okay, so they want to hold literally all of this. I just need to kick them off of things. So you got to be careful of that. That's why we spend so much time digging through our power deck to make sure that we have pushes, to make sure that we have the right tools, to maybe make sure that we're able to get to Walking Wall or Primal Brutality, because both Walking Wall and Primal Brutality serve our scoring immensely. And that's why we spend our first 2 activations drawing a lot of the time, especially in a longboard. In a longboard, that's almost always your first 2 activations. But in a wide board scenario, you're doing this, or they're doing this, but most of the time you're doing this because you are comfortable with the opponent that you're going to be facing. You are comfortable with your survivability, and you're going to actually really press this fortress territory. So this deck excels at a passive game plan, which is why this works so well. And again, you see when people hear you say Fearsome Fortress, they will often longboard you. Not everybody, but a lot of people will. The other part of that consideration is their game plan, or their taste for longboarding. Not everybody enjoys a longboard experience. And maybe their game plan is like, ooh, no, that's not going to work. So these are available to you, especially if you identify that they don't like the longboard, but in response to them longboarding you as well, if you suspect it coming. And then over here, so like this 2, for example, can get pushed down here if this gets offset, because if this is a wide board or an offset in that direction, this 2 is available. But if it's not, then you can always slide it down here. And so like all of these blue spots are push positions for Wallop and Daco. So you just kind of have to keep in mind where their starting hexes are, because you want to keep in mind where their leader can be placed. And so that's going to affect like maybe how you offset the board yourself. Like I find I don't often go for a full wide with them. I often offset just enough to make sure that my pushes are guaranteed. Because like, for example, right here, so this position, this can be a push. So if 1, 2, 3, 4 is the max offset, and their leader's like over here, then this can be a push to get closer. So those are things you consider. Same would be true of a push from here to here, with that sort of an offset. But ultimately, I find that Tooth Daggett and Hedkrakka are really easy to place. all of the rest of the placement, like shenanigans, is around Daco and Wallop, and it's so central to the way that this deck works that's why it's our focus here. If you feel like you're gonna have a comfortable matchup, then you can put Tufdaga and our leader Hedkrakka. You can put them up forward. If you think we're gonna have more of a passive matchup, you can bring them back. Hedkrakka can always rock like the furthest back because he's got a ranged attack, so you can that he's not just charging 3 and then hitting within 1. He's charging 3 and hitting within 3, so that gives him a little bit more leniency when it comes to positioning. Sometimes you position him and Daco in the back. Sometimes Daco's generally your front runner, but sometimes you position him in the back knowing that they're going to be charging forward, because you're maybe aiming for Here We Go, and which I recommend mulliganing most of the time in this matchup anyways. But you kind of get the idea, is sometimes they can be the ones that can bridge that gap with the charge to make sure that you're still able to get charged out. Because if you lose a fighter early that hasn't charged yet, that really becomes super important in your round 1. So let's see. No questions on boards or questions at all at this time. So I think that's going to wrap it for boards. Boards are going to make it into the article I write as well. I don't know how much I'm going to analyze boards because boards are so flexible with this warband. Like ultimately it comes down to making sure that you get those pushable feature token positions. So as long as you're looking at boards, always thinking about that first and foremost, the rest kind of falls into place. And I guess one thing I didn't talk about was kind of our hardest matchups. I did mention I struggle in Drum. Exiled Dead makes Bring It On not a card that's going to score, but Exiled Dead's actually a really fun matchup for them because you can farm primacy off the zombies, but you got to be careful not to be surrounded. So they can actually surround your scoring positions, in which case you kind of actually have to abandon. And this is true actually like often when you're fighting Exiled Dead, regardless of what game plan you have, unless that game plan is just kill the things, aggro. A lot of the time up against that, you're abandoning most of your scoring and you're shifting your game plan to farming zombies and killing D'Angelo. So it becomes much more about them being across the table from you and less about your objectives. Excuse me. I don't know if the microphone picked that up, but it burped. I'm guilty. Thomas Wakefield, what happens with Primal Tracker when your opponent doesn't have a leader at the start of the game? Did you talk about that already? I was just about to. So, what I was leading up to with bad matchups is their worst matchup in the game by far is the Storm Coven. And as those who are already aware of what Saxtum, Thomas here, of what we brought to the Pink Slip game, Thomas brought his signature Storm Coven with Breakneck Slaughter, and I brought my signature Hedkrakka's Fortkrakkas. So right out of the gate, and I should have known, but there was nothing stopping me. I wanted one glorious final moment for this warband. And I hadn't decided if it was going to be the Pink Slip match or a tournament. But when I decided I wanted to bring Mournflight to the Grand Clash in Alberta instead of Fortkrakkas, I was like, well, then they're my Pink Slip. Let's go. Because I knew, it's funny, we've talked about how going forward, we should probably see kind of like what like tier or like strength level we think the warbands are by vetting them through co-hosts that aren't in the matchup. Like, hey, are we gonna have a good like even matchup? And so here I definitely think that we had an even matchup, but it is their hardest matchup. And one of the reasons I chose them is I knew Saxton would go hard. He's infamous for not pulling punches, so I knew he'd be putting a lot on the line, and I wanted to put a lot on the line as well. I won't spoil the results for those who aren't aware. It does go to 3 games. That was something that we talked about in the Discords while it was happening. We were kind of like live tweeting that it goes to 3 games. So go ahead, get excited, get ready to watch, see which one of us lose our signature warband. But yes, it's so Domatan Storm Coven is particularly Hedkrakka's worst matchup because there's no leader across the table at the beginning of the game, and therefore you lose those 2 pushes at the beginning of the game. You lose your ability to draw those first 2 cards as your first activations, and so every activation that you take drawing a card reduces the amount of time that you're getting onto tokens. But Breakneck Slaughter is particularly like a bad pairing for them because the Domatan Storm can cross so much ground and deal so much damage out of nowhere. We're talking, 3-4 hammer attack coming off a Sarpon dealing 3-4 damage. There's no bigger threat out there, or when it comes to like threatening the removal of primacy from you in one shot, right? And then kind of like savoring your leader for later to continue to pull primacy away from you. So not only do you have the leader situation denying your pushes at the beginning of the game and hurting your first 2 activations, and your Hedkrakka's like game plan right out of the gate, but then you also have this super mobile high damage threat, and you're in for a treat. It's a great brawl. Okay, I think that's a great note to end today's episode on. I knew today was going to be a long one because I was more than excited, beyond excited, to be talking about this. So join me in giving Hedkrakka's a proper send-off. We lose this pairing as soon as October hits with the new core box. So traditionally that's in October. Traditionally I think mid to late October, but whenever that next box drops, the Hedkrakka's journey is concluded. So help me continue to send them off. And all right, I'm gonna pull up my outro real quick here because I want to just talk to you quick about what's next week. Next week's a week A, so it'll be a fresh build from the ground up. But first, there will be a field report tackling the Hungering Plague, and I'll let you know now. Oh boy, is it going to be a field report? It's been hard. It's been hard, folks. There's going to be some card recommendations for sure. And then we have the pairing that we're going to be building already picked out. It's going to be Crimson Court plus Hungering Plague. So it's essentially going to act as a lessons learned episode, as there's been a lot to learn experimenting with the Hungering Plague here. So take what we've learned, apply that to Crimson Court, which I think is going to be a fantastic warband with the pairing. See what we can build. Crimson Court was requested by Jake, who's constantly rocking a squid tag in the Discords. Then also in queue, as we continue to do more week A builds, we have Starblood Stalkers plus something of my choosing. I gotta look up who originally sent that over, but it has not left the queue. It will be tackled. Exiled Dead plus BNS, requested by Wellner, the Exiled Dead mad scientist that we all know and love. And then additionally, last thing that I have queued up is Wormspat plus Force of Frost, but I'm going to reach out. That was requested by 2 individuals, and that was, we talked previously on the show about how I wasn't going to do that one within the early weeks of the show because I wanted to focus on things that were available, both Warband and deck, for new players starting out. I really wanted that to be the focus of the first few episodes. However, we've definitely crossed that threshold. So I'm going to reach out and see if they still want me to do this because Force of Frost has been nerfed since, or if there's anything else they'd like me to do with Wormspot or Force of Frost. You haven't been forgotten. If you would like to add a deck to the queue, let me know. I'm always looking forward to it. Anytime somebody messages me saying, hey, I'd love for you to try to build X, Y, or Z on what the decks, whether that's a warband that they're interested in and they want to see something built with, or they have a pairing specifically they'd like me to dive. I love that. It brings me great joy to get those messages. So you can see this deck, the Hedkrakka's Fort Crackers, on Battle Mallet Nemesis Library. It's probably classified under LVO edition, but hear me here. That is the final stamp. That is the Fort Crackers build. And you can best reach me in the comments below, or on the Mortal Realms Discord. You can check out all the Mortal Realms Network has to offer, including a link to our Discord at themortalrealms.com. I'd love to chat with you there. Thank you for watching. Hope to see you next week. I've been Skylar, and this has been my love letter to Hedkrakka's Fort Crackers and What the Decks. Have a great week.